Looking for a little bit of help on your coursework? Well, you are in the right place. So today's video is all going to be looking at the section B, which is the evaluation section of your coursework. So if you are new to the channel, I'm Richard from PE. Lots and lots of videos out there for GCSE PE, and everything that you need to know on the coursework is coming up. So if you're new to the channel, make sure you like and subscribe. Click the bell so you don't miss any of the uploads, and we are going to get cracking looking at everything about section B of your coursework. So I have done a video on section A, which will probably be popping up here somewhere. If you've not watched that already, go back and look at that, because that will be a massive, massive help. Now, this video is going to be in two kind of parts. The first bit is going to be all about trying to help you through what you need to be discussing, and then there'll be a further follow-up video looking at how we can try and help you to try and get the best grades possible. So let's have a look. So with your coursework, we've got section A, which is worth 15 marks, section B, which is worth 10 marks. So those 10 marks that we're looking at now are all about your ability to now kind of start to evaluate how you're going to do something about the bits you identified in section A as your weaknesses. So if we look back at section A, remember we had to talk about a strength and a weakness for some skill matters or tactics, and when we had to look at a strength and a weakness for some fitness aspects or fitness components, I should say. So what we're going to look at in this evaluation section is what you have to do. So let's have a look at that now. So in this section, you're going to have to create an action plan, and this is going to be based on ways to improve those weaknesses that you looked at in section A. So what we're going to have to do here is start to look at how we're going to improve that component of fitness that you have suggested was a real weakness in your activity, and also how we're going to do something that might combat the skill weakness. So you need to design an appropriate training method which is going to improve your fitness weakness. So what does that mean? Well, it means that you're going to have to do a full description of one training method, as in I was going to take your session in so that I could do it perfectly in the way that you want me to do it. And that's the key. So you've got to remember that people looking at your work don't really quite understand what you're trying to say unless you tell them. So what you've got to do is be really, really specific and say, this is exactly what we're going to do. So let's take cardiovascular endurance, which seems to be the most popular one that I've looked at in the coursework that I've marked from my year 10s. So the most popular training method that they could choose to use would be something like continuous training. So in this section, they're going to have to tell me exactly how they are going to use continuous training to improve their cardiovascular endurance. Now, what that's going to mean that they're going to have to do is that, and again, you'll see in the PowerPoint that's going to be in this video, is that they have to do a full description of one training session, providing an example of what they have to use. The example of how prolonged use of this training method is going to improve the fitness weakness. Now, within that, they're going to have to use the method of training. So they're going to have to tell me everything about that method of training. So that's the first thing we want to think about. We then want to think about the type of training that we're going to use and the reasons why. So if we just have a little flick over here. So this is what we've got. So what was your component of fitness weakness? Which training method you're going to use? Is it continuous, interval, fartlek? Is it weight training, plyometric, static training? You're going to use high altitude training? You're going to use circuit training. It's going to be one of those, okay, for absolutely every method of training, but you've got to justify why you're choosing that one over all of those others. So which training method would most improve that component of fitness? So like I say, if we're going to use the example of cardiovascular endurance, it's going to be continuous training. Now, I'm going to be saying that continuous training is a method of training which is aerobic and is aiming for the participant to work between 60 and 80% of their maximum heart rate. I'm going to talk about how long it goes on for. I'm going to talk about all the different ways that we can do it, in theory. Okay, we then need to then actually go in and start to do it. So the first thing you've got to do is describe your training method. You've got to then start to think, okay, and justify why have you chosen that method of training? Why out of every method of training is that the one that you're going to use? What's the link between that training method and your component that you have discussed in section A? So if I was going to be doing cardiovascular endurance and I started talking about weight training, it's going to be a little bit difficult to try and link those. So make sure you use the correct one so your work makes sense. What is the link between the training method and your sport and activity? So you're going to be doing the training in a particular way, but it's got to meet the requirements of your sport. And this is where we start to look at some different aspects, such as the principles of training. So again, have a look at those if you've not seen them yet. So we've got FIT, which is frequency, intensity, time and type. And then we've got sports, again, so we'll do a later video on that, but specificity, progressive overload, reversibility, and tedium. So you've got to look at all of those different things. The next thing that you would start to discuss is what are the benefits that you're hoping to gain from doing that training method. So again, when you're discussing it, what are you actually aiming to try and get out of this training? What are you trying to achieve? Okay, is it that you're going to try and be able to run for longer in your sport, to be able to play at a higher intensity for a longer period of time? Is it that you want to move faster? Is it that you want to be able to jump higher? Be very specific in your sport and the examples that you're going to give. And then think about what are the advantages of using that training method and what are the disadvantages. So if you're going to use continuous training, it's cheap, everyone can do it, it's brilliant. It can be a little bit boring though. So again, there's going to be some disadvantages along with the advantages. Okay, so you then got to go in and plan your session. The session, it's quite hard to say sometimes. Imagine that your teacher is going to do your session and they need every single piece of information. I'm talking warm up, I'm talking about pieces of equipment that you're going to use. Where are you going to do it? How are you going to do it? How long for? What are your heart rates going to be? Lots and lots and lots of information that they need. Use the principles of training and be really, really specific. Don't assume that they know what you're talking about. Treat your teacher like they're an idiot, because you've got to make sure you get it on paper. Far too many times I see pieces of work and oh yeah, I meant to say that, but you didn't, and that's why you got this grade. So that's what you've got to think about. We then start to then go into the next section. So the next section is that you're going to link some theory to the weaknesses from your skills. So if you said that your shooting in football was a weakness, if you said that your layups in basketball, that your batting in cricket was your weakness, whatever it was, this is where we've got to start to now look at section A to use some theory to try and now plan how our theory is going to meet some of the issues that maybe you found. So let's have a look at this. Okay, so what is your skill weakness from section A is the first thing to think about. Why is it a weakness? Is there a reason for that problem? Using theory knowledge. Now, all that theory knowledge has to be something from psychology. So that could be things like information processing. It could be goal setting. It could be arousal. It could be motivation. There's loads and loads of things that you could talk about. Okay. Now, on this, you've got to look at say, that piece of theory. How is that going to link to your weakness? So let's say that we were looking at shooting in football as a weakness. One of the real key things for a lot of people is that they maybe get over aroused, that when they're through on goal, that they can't quite focus on the things they should focus on because they are over aroused. So that's what we would talk about, and we lick everything we can about arousal. So for instance, if you come up with a theory weakness, you need to think about why that is being caused by that piece of theory. So that's where we need to go with in this section. So let's have a look at our little plan for that. So step one, describe the theory behind your skill weakness. So tell me everything you know about that bit of theory. So about goal setting, about arousal, but every time link it back to the skill weakness that you discussed in section A. Explain what impact that has on your performance. So if I was looking at arousal, I would need to talk about how being over aroused is a bad thing in my activity. I would need to talk about how that maybe limits some of the aspects of the information processor model because it narrows my field, my perceptual field. Okay, we then need to analyze what could be put in place to deter it. So I could think about I need to lower my arousal by using certain techniques such as deep breathing, about positive self-talk, imagery. I've got to then use all that theory knowledge to then be able to explain how am I going to improve my skill weakness. So again, a bit of a psychological action plan. Okay, so for example, I would define arousal. Am I under or am I over aroused? Why is that? Why am I being nervous? Why is that impacting my performance? What stress management technique am I going to use? For instance, deep breathing. You watch Ronaldo before a free kick, big deep breaths before he goes to hit it. So that's the sort of thing we need to look at. Okay, so in this bit, we are looking at the skill weakness, looking at the theory behind it, and then what are you going to then do about it? So that is a quick 10-minute bit about something which is worth 10 marks. Now, if you follow those plans, it will give you a really, really good starting position to go, okay, this is a nice plan to follow. What we will do in future videos is to go through the topics and show you how to get maybe the very best marks so that you can get 10 out of 10 in this section and ideally 25 out of 25. Now, obviously, at the moment, things are very, very difficult. You know, you're still sat at home, your teacher's still trying to help you, and I know lots of them are using these videos. So why not get in touch? Why not make sure that you follow me on Instagram, you have a look at Twitter, you send me some comments, okay, that are going to help you on this work, because I'm in the same situation as you. I'm sat in my room. That's why we've got bits and bobs out the back here, and it's not normally as tidy as it normally is in the other videos. But still, make sure you click on the subscribe buttons, have a look at the playlist and the videos that are coming up, and also click that bell so you don't miss out on anything. And I will be back shortly showing you some other content for the coursework, and also trying to help you out as much as I possibly can. So thanks for watching, and I will see you again very, very, very soon, hopefully.